Get ready to question humanity because we are exposing the absolute maddest things people have ever done while ordering fast food. Imagine a driver with a 6-foot boa constrictor loose in the car striking at the cashier, or a grown man standing in the lane making engine noises because he claims to identify as a sedan. We have tracked down 49 of the most unhinged encounters, from people trying to pay with bags of household trash to customers refusing to speak unless it is through a creepy ventriloquist puppet. You have to hear these stories to believe them, so buckle up because this is going to be a wild ride. 1. A massive bodybuilder pulled up to the pickup window with veins popping out of his neck. He handed his entire value meal, consisting of a double cheeseburger, fries, and a large soda, back to the terrified teenage cashier. He aggressively demanded that the staff put the whole greasy mess into the McFlurry machine to blend it into a drinkable protein sludge. He explained that he needed to consume his calories immediately while driving, and chewing was a waste of precious time. The disgusted manager stepped in and refused to destroy their ice cream equipment with meat and soggy fries. The muscle man drove away angrily, screaming that the restaurant was trying to kill his gains. 2. A confused elderly woman shocked the entire fast food staff by entering the narrow drive-thru lane in reverse. She expertly navigated the tight curves while looking over her shoulder until her trunk was directly facing the pickup window. The employees inside stopped working and stared in total disbelief as she rolled down her window to speak. She innocently explained that the gas cap was on the passenger side of her sedan, so she thought she had to back in to get her food properly. The workers were too stunned to correct her twisted logic. They simply handed the bag of food to her outstretched hand, while other drivers honked in confusion at the backward car. 3. A middle-aged man pulled up to the speaker alone, but acted like he was in a crowded car. He leaned over to the completely empty passenger seat and nodded enthusiastically as if listening to a ghost. He proceeded to order a massive family meal for a guy named Steve, who clearly did not exist. The situation got even creepier when he started arguing loudly with the invisible passenger about the choice of barbecue sauce. The terrified worker at the window handed over the food without making eye contact, while the man laughed at a joke the empty seat apparently made. It was a scene straight out of a horror movie happening right in the drive-thru lane. 4. A nervous teenager rolled up to the window with a $20 order of tacos and burritos. Instead of handing over a card or cash, he lifted a heavy gallon-sized Ziploc bag from the passenger seat. The bag was filled to the brim with thousands of loose, unrolled pennies that smelled like old copper. He proceeded to pour the mountain of coins directly into the open hands of the despairing cashier while a long line of cars honked behind him. The manager had to shut down the window for 20 minutes just to count the sticky change. The kid just shrugged and said he was clearing out his piggy bank for lunch. 5. A frantic woman in a luxury SUV refused to roll her window down more than an inch. She screamed that the restaurant was a hotbed of bacteria and she did not want to touch anything. Before she would even hand over her credit card, she pushed a box of sealed surgical gloves through the crack. She demanded that the confused cashier scrub their hands and put on the fresh, sterile gloves she provided. Only then did she allow the employee to touch her card to process the payment. The entire staff watched in amazement as she sprayed the returned card with a cloud of disinfectant before speeding away from the germs. 6. A serious man in a pickup truck placed an order for a classic quarter pounder with cheese. However, he added a terrifying instruction that stopped the kitchen dead in its tracks. He explicitly demanded that the burger patty remain completely raw and red because he claimed he could cook it better at home. The manager explained that selling uncooked beef was a major health code violation, and they could not do it. The man became furious and argued that he was the customer and he knew how to grill better than them. He eventually settled for a cooked burger, but complained that they had ruined the integrity of the meat. 7. The sensor in the drive-thru lane beeped, but the camera showed no vehicle at all. The confused employee looked out the window and saw a grown man standing alone in the middle of the lane. He was holding an invisible steering wheel and making loud vroom vroom noises with his mouth. When told that walk-ups were not allowed for safety reasons, he became genuinely offended. He argued passionately that he identified as a sedan and therefore had every right to be there. The staff watched in stunned silence as he reversed his imaginary car out of the lane and parked himself in a marked spot to wait for service. 8. An angry old man in a rusty van decided to make the ordering process a complete nightmare. Every single time the teenage employee tried to greet him or ask a question, he blasted his car horn. He would lean out the window and scream that he could not hear a single word over the noise he was making. The poor worker tried to shout the menu options, but was immediately drowned out by another long honk. This cycle continued for 5 agonizing minutes until the man drove off in a rage, claiming the speaker was broken. The staff realized he was creating his own problem just to have something to yell about. 9. The night shift crew was baffled when a small remote-controlled car rolled up to the speaker box. A plastic laundry basket was taped to the top of the toy vehicle, along with a walkie-talkie. A lazy voice crackled through the radio, instructing them to put the chicken nuggets into the basket. The customer was actually sitting on a couch in an apartment directly across the street, watching through binoculars. He guided the little robot through the payment window and then navigated it back across 4 lanes of traffic. The employees cheered as the little delivery bot successfully made it over the curb without spilling the drinks or getting crushed. 10. A disheveled woman pulled up to the payment window with a confident smile on her face. Instead of handing over cash or a debit card, she tried to pass a heavy black garbage bag through the window. The smell was awful, and the bag was clearly filled with household trash and old coffee grounds. She genuinely believed that the fast food restaurant accepted garbage as a form of currency or trade. When the cashier refused to take her trash, she became indignant and asked to speak to corporate. She eventually drove off, muttering that the customer service was terrible while the smell of the bag lingered in the kitchen. 11. A high-maintenance woman in a convertible caused a massive traffic jam during the lunch rush. She ordered a specialty sandwich but threw a fit when she realized the bun had sesame seeds on it. Instead of asking for a different bun, she demanded that the kitchen staff use tweezers to manually remove every single seed. She claimed that the tiny seeds would get stuck in her expensive dental veneers and ruin her smile. The kitchen crew stared at the ticket in horror, refusing to perform surgery on a piece of bread. She sat at the window inspecting the bun for 5 minutes, before finally driving away in a huff. 12. A late-night shift turned into a comedy show when a driver stopped responding at the speaker box. The employees listened closely and heard a rhythmic rumbling sound that shook the headset speakers. The driver had fallen into a deep sleep with his foot on the brake and the microphone live broadcasting his loud snoring. The entire restaurant staff gathered around the monitor to listen to the cacophony of snorts and wheezes. A worker eventually had to walk out to the car and tap on the window to wake him up. The startled man drove off in a panic without ever ordering his late-night snack. 13. A mischievous teenager pulled up to the window with a phone camera clearly pointing at the worker. He ordered a simple vanilla cone, but his intentions were far from innocent. As the unsuspecting employee extended the treat through the window, the driver grabbed it firmly by the soft-serve ice cream instead of the cone. He maintained intense and unblinking eye contact, while the cold dessert squished through his fingers and dripped onto his lap. The worker stood there confused and disgusted by the sticky mess while the car sped off laughing. It was a bizarre internet trend that left everyone feeling sticky and annoyed. 14. A generous man in a sedan decided to start a kindness chain by paying for the car behind him. He felt great about his good deed until he glanced in his rearview mirror to see who was next. The vehicle behind him was a massive stretch limousine that clearly belonged to someone very wealthy. The man immediately shouted at the cashier to cancel the payment because he refused to buy lunch for a millionaire. The awkward interaction ended with him taking his money back and speeding off. The rich people in the limo had no idea they almost got a free meal from a stranger. 15. The drive-thru attendant was terrified when a car pulled up driven by a man who refused to move his lips. Sitting on his lap was a terrifying wooden puppet with chipped paint and staring eyes. The man would only communicate through the doll, using a squeaky, high-pitched voice to order a burger and fries. The manager threatened to call the cops over a 10-cent cup of syrup, so the car finally sped off, spilling soda everywhere. 16. A health-conscious mother lectured the staff about sodium levels through the speaker box for several minutes. She strictly emphasized that her large order of fries must be completely fresh with absolutely zero salt added. The kitchen had to fry a special batch just for her, which took extra time and effort. However, when she reached the pickup window, she immediately asked for 25 packets of salt on the side. The stunned cashier watched as she proceeded to tear them open and dump a mountain of sodium onto the supposedly healthy fries. She claimed she just liked to control the seasoning herself while the workers rolled their eyes. 17. A confused customer at a pizza drive-thru caused a headache with a demand that defied basic geometry. He insisted that his large, round pepperoni pizza be cut into perfect squares instead of the traditional triangular slices. When he checked the box at the window, he became irate, pointing at the small corner pieces. He argued that those tiny pieces were a rip-off and demanded the kitchen make the corners full-sized. The manager tried to explain that you cannot get square corners from a circle without magic. The man refused to listen and accused the restaurant of stealing crust from him. 18. A paranoid dog owner pulled up with a golden retriever sitting in the passenger seat wearing a bandana. She ordered a plain burger patty for her pet, but refused to accept it right away. She pulled a dry dog biscuit out of her pocket and held it out to the human cashier. She aggressively demanded that the employee take a bite of the dog treat to prove that the staff was not poisoning animals. The worker politely refused to eat the pet food, which only made the woman more suspicious. She sped off, screeching that she would never trust a place that would not eat its own dog treats. 19. A confused young man rolled up to a Burger King speaker with total confidence in his voice. He aggressively tried to order a McGangbang, which is a secret menu item famous at McDonald's, not Burger King. When the employee explained that they were a completely different chain and did not serve that item, he got angry. He insisted that he saw it on the internet and accused the staff of lying to him. The argument lasted for 5 minutes until he finally looked up at the sign and realized his mistake. He drove away in shame without ordering anything, leaving the staff wondering how he passed his driving test. 20. An entitled customer decided that the standard foil ketchup packets were simply beneath his dignity. He ordered a small fry but refused the handful of packets the cashier offered him. Instead, he demanded that the worker go into the storage room and open a brand new full-sized retail bottle of ketchup just for him. He claimed the packet ketchup tasted like plastic, and he only consumed the fresh stuff from the bottle. The manager had to step in and explain that they could not give away entire bottles of condiments for a $2 order. The man threw the fries on the ground and vowed to never return. 21. A cheerful young man drove up to the window to pay for his late-night snack. As the cashier held out the card reader, the screen prompted the customer to select a tip amount. The guy chuckled loudly, looked the tired worker dead in the eye, and said, "Here's a tip, get a real job." He then burst into laughter at his own cruel joke, as if it were the funniest thing ever said. The exhausted employee just stared blankly as the payment processed, completely unamused by the disrespect. The driver grabbed his bag of food and peeled out of the lot, still laughing, while the worker shook their head. 22. The drive-thru lane looked like the scene of a romantic comedy gone wrong when a lone driver appeared. A woman was sitting behind the wheel, wearing a massive white wedding dress with a veil and intricate lace. She was crying hysterically, mascara running down her face and honking at the car in front of her. When she finally reached the speaker, she sobbed loudly and ordered 50 chicken nuggets and a chocolate shake. The staff handed over the massive amount of comfort food to the runaway bride without asking a single question. She drove off, tearing into the nuggets, clearly having the worst and hungriest day of her life. 23. A middle-aged man tried to outsmart science with a beverage order that baffled the entire crew. He asked for a large drink that was exactly half Diet Coke and half regular Coke. He confidently explained his theory that the diet soda contained negative calories which would cancel out the sugar from the regular soda. The employee tried to hold back laughter as they filled the cup with the bizarre mixture. The customer took a long sip and nodded, claiming he could taste the weight loss happening. He drove away convinced he had discovered the ultimate loophole for drinking soda without gaining weight. 24. A group of teenagers pulled the oldest trick in the book, but with zero subtlety. The driver politely asked for a free courtesy cup for water at the pickup window. As soon as the cashier turned their back, the kid leaned out and held the clear cup under the soda dispenser. He proceeded to fill it to the brim with bright green Sprite while staring aggressively at the manager who was watching him. When confronted, he claimed it was actually spicy water from a special spring. The amused staff decided to call his bluff and dumped nearly 50 packets of sauce into his car. He drove away cheering like he had just won the lottery, clearly planning to drown his food in dressing. 25. A frat boy in a lifted truck was obsessed with ranch dressing to a disturbing degree. After ordering a single meal, he leaned into the microphone and made a very specific request. He asked the worker to give him as much ranch as they could possibly hand over without getting fired. When he got to the window, he held out a plastic grocery bag, ready to be filled. The amused staff decided to call his bluff and dumped nearly 50 packets of sauce into his car. He drove away cheering like he had just won the lottery, clearly planning to drown his food in dressing. 26. A furious customer returned to the drive-thru window only minutes after picking up his order. He slammed the bag of food onto the ledge and screamed that his coffee was actually too hot. He claimed the beverage had burned his sensitive tongue, and he was ready to sue the establishment for thermal negligence. The manager tried to explain that coffee is supposed to be brewed with boiling water, but the man would not listen. He demanded they put an ice cube in it and refund his money for the pain and suffering. The line behind him grew longer as he argued about the physics of heat. 27. A car enthusiast with a heavily modified sports car decided to show off his engine while waiting for nuggets. The exhaust was so loud that the vibrations literally shook the menu board and the window glass. He revved the engine repeatedly, creating a deafening roar that set off the car alarms of 3 vehicles parked nearby. The cacophony of sirens and engine noise made it impossible for anyone to take an order. The manager had to shout at him to turn off the car or leave the property immediately. He rolled his eyes and coasted through the rest of the line in silent protest. 28. The sensor dinged and a minivan pulled up to the speaker box ready to order. Literally half a second later, before the automated greeting could even finish, the driver started screaming hello at the top of his lungs. He continued to yell hello repeatedly without pausing for breath, acting as if he had been waiting for hours. The employee tried to answer but was cut off every time by another aggressive shout. It turned out the man was just impatient and wanted to assert dominance over the speaker box. The staff took their sweet time getting his order ready as a small revenge for his rudeness. 29. A confident young man held up the entire lunch rush with a misguided attempt at romance. Instead of ordering food, he spent 10 minutes trying to flirt with the girl working the headset. He refused to tell her what he wanted to eat until she gave him her personal Instagram handle. He insisted he would not move his car until she pulled out her phone and followed him back right then and there. The manager eventually had to intervene and threatened to tow his car if he did not order or leave. He finally drove off defeated and hungry without a date or a burger. 30. A guy ordered $40 worth of premium burgers and shakes with total confidence. He pulled up to the second window, grabbed the heavy bags of food, and placed them securely on his passenger seat. Then he patted his pockets with a look of theatrical shock and claimed he forgot his wallet at home. He gave the cashier a pitiful look, hoping the store would just let him keep the food out of sympathy. The worker immediately reached into the car and took the bags back without saying a word. The man's act instantly dropped, and he drove away angry that his scam failed. 31. A car full of rowdy teenagers finished paying for their meal and prepared to leave. As the driver slowly accelerated the passenger in the front seat, leaned his entire body out of the window, he reached out with long arms and grabbed the heavy yellow wet floor sign standing on the patio. He dragged the plastic sign into the car while his friends laughed hysterically at the theft. The manager watched on the security camera as they sped off with their stolen souvenir. It was a pointless crime that left the staff wondering why anyone would want a dirty caution sign in their bedroom. 32. A terrified cashier froze in place when a car pulled up with a unique passenger. The driver had a massive 6-foot boa constrictor wrapped loosely around his neck and shoulders. As the employee reached out to hand over the change, the snake suddenly lunged forward and struck at the window. The cashier screamed and slammed the glass shut, while the driver just laughed and said the snake was friendly. He spent the next minute trying to apologize to the traumatized worker through the closed window. The staff refused to open it again until the reptile was safely back inside a cage. 33. A middle-aged man walked into the drive-thru lane flashing a shiny object in his hand. He held up a plastic badge that looked like it came from a dollar store toy set. He deepened his voice and demanded the law enforcement discount for his dozen donuts, claiming he was an undercover officer. The badge clearly said Junior Police on it, and the man was wearing pajamas. The manager politely informed him that they supported the police but could not accept toys as identification. The man grumbled about respect for the badge and shuffled away without his discounted treats. 34. An elderly lady rummaged through her massive purse for several minutes while the line behind her grew. She finally produced a crumpled and yellowing piece of paper that looked like an ancient artifact. She tried to use a coupon for a free burger that had an expiration date from 1998. When the cashier pointed out it was expired by decades, she argued that paper does not go bad. She insisted that a deal was a deal, and the company should honor its promises forever. The manager eventually gave her a small discount just to get the line moving again. 35. A perfectionist customer opened his burger box right at the window and frowned deeply. He held the sandwich up next to the professional photo on the illuminated menu board. He complained loudly that his burger did not look exactly like the marketing picture, which was clearly styled by artists. He demanded the kitchen remake it to match the photo perfectly, with the lettuce peeking out just right. The cook tried 3 times to satisfy him, but the man was never happy with the aesthetic. He finally left claiming false advertising because his fast food was not a work of art. 36. A crafty customer thought he had discovered the ultimate beverage hack to save money. He ordered a large soda with absolutely no ice, and a second cup filled with just ice on the side. At the window, he proceeded to pour the warm soda over the ice, creating 2 full drinks for the price of 1. He looked at the cashier with a smug grin as if he were a financial genius. The worker did not care enough to stop him, but the line behind him was annoyed by his science experiment. He drove off feeling like he had scammed the system for 50 cents. 37. A chaotic minivan pulled up to the speaker, but the driver window did not roll down. Instead, 2 small children popped out of the open sunroof like meerkats to scream the order. They yelled that the car's electrical system was broken and the windows were stuck shut. The kids had to relay messages back and forth between the cashier and their mother in the driver's seat. The payment process involved the mom throwing cash out of the sunroof, hoping it would land near the window. It was a logistical nightmare that entertained everyone waiting in line behind them. 38. A health fanatic ordered a burger, but made a request that the restaurant could not fulfill. she asked for her sandwich to be wrapped in fresh lettuce instead of a bun. When told they did not serve lettuce wraps, she demanded the kitchen staff leave the building. She insisted that someone run to the grocery store next door to buy a head of lettuce just for her. The manager explained that they could not shop for groceries in the middle of a shift. She drove off disgusted that they would not go the extra mile for her diet. 39. A grown man in a business suit threw a temper tantrum that rivaled a toddler. He opened his Happy Meal and discovered that the included toy was from the Girl series. He stormed back to the window and shouted that he specifically needed the boy toy for his collection. He accused the staff of ruining his day and demanded they open every box until they found the specific action figure he wanted. The workers were baffled that a 40-year-old man cared so much about a plastic trinket. He finally got his toy and drove away clutching it like a treasure. 40. A brave customer ordered the new ghost pepper wings, claiming he had a steel stomach. He scoffed at the warnings and told the staff to bring on the heat. 5 minutes later, he returned to the window with a red face and tears streaming down his cheeks. He demanded a full refund because the wings were too spicy and had hurt him. He argued that the food was dangerous and should not be sold to humans. The manager pointed out the name of the product but gave him a refund to stop the crying. He chugged a milk carton right there in the lane. 41. A confused driver pulled up to the speaker box and sat there in silence for a long time. The employee said hello multiple times but got no response from the car. The camera showed the driver leaning out the window and aggressively jamming his debit card into the speaker grate. He thought the drive-thru was fully automated like an ATM machine and was trying to insert payment to start his order. The worker had to shout that he needed to use his voice, not his card. The embarrassed man finally spoke up, apologizing for trying to pay the microphone. 42. A desperate driver bypassed the speaker entirely and sped straight to the pickup window. He begged the employee to let him climb through the window because the lobby doors were locked for the night. He explained that he really needed to use the bathroom and could not hold it any longer. The worker refused, citing safety policies and the small size of the window opening. The man panicked and considered climbing on the roof before finally driving off to find a gas station. It was a bizarre moment of desperation that left the staff feeling slightly bad, but mostly confused. 43. A man with a very specific political ideology refused to pay the total amount on the screen. He handed over exact change for the burger price, but strictly withheld the sales tax. He claimed to be a sovereign citizen who did not recognize the government's authority to tax his lunch. He spent 10 minutes lecturing the teenage cashier about constitutional law and maritime flags. The manager eventually paid the 80 cents out of his own pocket just to get the guy to leave. The man drove away feeling like he had won a major victory for freedom. 44. A young woman with a ring light attached to her dashboard treated the drive-thru like a studio. Instead of ordering food, she shoved a camera directly into the worker's face. She asked the exhausted employee to rate her outfit for her TikTok followers' live stream. When the worker politely asked her to order, she got annoyed and called them unsupportive. She held up the line for several minutes, trying to get the perfect reaction shot for her video. She finally left without buying anything, claiming the vibes were off at that location. 45. An obsessive germaphobe made a request that stunned the cashier holding the register. After paying with a $20 bill, she refused to accept the change back immediately. She demanded that the worker take the coins to the back sink and wash them with soap and hot water. She claimed money was dirty, and she would not touch it unless it was freshly scrubbed. The bewildered employee actually rinsed the quarters and dried them with a paper towel. The customer accepted the clean money with a nod and drove away, satisfied with her sanitized transaction. 46. A very confused elderly gentleman pulled his sedan up to the microphone with a serious request. He asked the voice in the box if they could rotate his tires and check the oil levels. He had mistaken the fast food lane for the quick lube shop that was located 2 blocks down the street. The employee gently explained that they only sold burgers and fries, not car maintenance. The man laughed at his own mistake and decided to order a milkshake since he was already there. He drove off slowly, still looking for the mechanic shop. 47. A wannabe rapper saw the drive-thru speaker as his big chance to get discovered. He started rapping his entire order to a beat he was playing from his car stereo. He rhymed cheeseburger with murder and refused to stop until the cashier rapped the total back to him. The awkward employee tried to just say the price, but the driver insisted on a musical response. The standoff lasted until the worker finally rhymed $5.99 with fine. The rapper cheered, gave a thumbs up, and drove forward feeling like a star. 48. A customer with very specific tastes placed an order that made the kitchen pause. He asked for a 3-piece fried chicken meal, but with a bizarre modification. He wanted the workers to peel all the crispy skin off the chicken and serve only the skin in a box. He explicitly stated he did not want the meat or the bones, just the fried breading. The manager refused to serve a box of skin, so the customer bought the chicken and peeled it himself in the parking lot. He sat in his car, eating only the skin while discarding the actual food. 49. A paranoid man in a trench coat whispered into the speaker using a secret code he invented. He said the eagle has landed and expected the staff to know that meant a Big Mac. When the confused employee asked him to repeat the order, he got angry and said the payload is ready. He refused to say the actual names of the food items, believing the government was listening to his order. The manager had to guess what he wanted based on his cryptic clues. He finally got his burger and drove away, checking his rearview mirror for spies. Well, there you have it. Proof that common sense is definitely not included on the dollar menu. From skin-eating weirdos to literal snake handlers, I think we can all agree that fast food workers deserve a massive raise in hazard pay. If watching strangers lose their minds made you feel better about your own life, smash that like button and share this video. Make sure to subscribe to BrainFumble and turn on notifications so you never miss the chaos. Now tell me in the comments, which one was the absolute worst? The guy who demanded raw meat, or the grown man crying over a girl toy? Let me know.